The universe had known order for millennia. Civilizations rose and fell within carefully mapped trajectories, their development a predictable dance of technological progression and cultural evolution. The Galactic Concordance prided itself on its ability to categorize, understand, and ultimately control the emergence of intelligent species. Then came humanity. Deep within the Nexus Observatory, located at the heart of the Concordance's most secure research facility, senior xenoanalyst Sarlacc felt the first tremor of something unprecedented. The initial detection came not as a grand proclamation or a carefully crafted diplomatic message, but as a cacophony of seemingly unrelated data streams. The first transmission defied all established protocols of first contact. It began with a burst of electromagnetic noise that most systems would have immediately classified as interference. But this was no ordinary signal. Layers of information twisted and merged in a complex tapestry that made no sense, yet somehow communicated everything. A fragment of mathematical equations describing quantum mechanics competed for attention with a loud musical piece featuring distorted guitar riffs and aggressive percussion. Interspersed between these were snippets of what appeared to be a comedic performance, rapid-fire dialogue that seemed to contain both profound philosophical observations and completely nonsensical humor. Sarlacc's most advanced predictive algorithms, systems that had successfully mapped the developmental trajectories of over 10,000 intelligent species, began to malfunction. Lines of code twisted, computational matrices collapsed, and for the first time in the Concordance's history, a xenoanalytical system simply gave up. "This cannot be real," Sarlacc muttered, 6 of their 8 sensory appendages twitching in a combination of confusion and emerging fear. The monitoring station erupted into chaos. Holographic displays flickered with fragmented data, each attempting to make sense of the transmission. Junior analysts looked to their senior colleagues, seeking guidance, but Sarlacc had no answers. What made the transmission truly terrifying was its apparent lack of intentionality. Most first contacts were careful, measured, designed to communicate specific information. This was raw, unfiltered existence, a species that didn't just communicate, they expressed. Deep analysis revealed layers upon layers of information. The mathematical equations weren't just complex, they were revolutionary. Embedded within the musical chaos were communication patterns that suggested a level of cognitive flexibility previously thought impossible. The comedy routine, a masterclass in cultural communication that simultaneously broke and redefined every known principle of interspecies dialogue. Sarlacc zoomed in on a particularly intricate section of the transmission. Mathematical proofs danced with cultural references, scientific observations intertwined with what appeared to be a joke about breakfast foods and existential philosophy. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. The data suggested something impossible. These humans weren't just another species to be cataloged. They were something entirely different, a fundamental disruption to everything the Concordance understood about intelligent life. Quantum mechanics mixed with pop culture. Advanced scientific theories nestled alongside seemingly random humor. Complex strategic thinking hidden within layers of apparent nonsense. As hours passed, the transmission continued. Each moment revealed new layers of complexity. Each second made it clear that humanity was not just another species to be understood. They were a force of nature. Sarlacc realized with a mixture of terror and excitement that everything was about to change. The universe had just encountered something it could not predict, could not control, could not comprehend. Humanity had arrived. The Concordance's diplomatic vessel materialized in Earth's orbit with the precision of a centuries-old machine of interstellar bureaucracy. Ambassador Krellnax adjusted his ceremonial communication implants, reviewing centuries of first contact protocols. This would be simple. This would be controlled. He could not have been more wrong. The initial approach came through what humans called a video conference, a communication method so primitive it should have been laughable. But there was nothing primitive about the human representatives who appeared on the screen. Captain Mira Rodriguez sat at the head of the conference table, her uniform crisp but her posture deliberately relaxed. To her left, a junior diplomat named Alex Chen was playing what appeared to be an arcade game on a handheld device. To her right, Dr. Elena Kovacs was simultaneously reviewing complex scientific data and eating what looked like a sandwich with an impossible number of ingredients. "Welcome," Captain Rodriguez said, her smile containing more strategic complexity than most species' entire diplomatic corps. Ambassador Krulnax's translation algorithms worked overtime. The human language was a minefield of idioms, cultural references, and multi-layered communication that defied traditional xenolinguistic models. Every sentence contained multiple potential meanings, each more complicated than the last. "We understand you're here to discuss our potential integration into the Galactic Concordance," Mira continued, her tone somewhere between professional courtesy and barely contained amusement. The junior diplomat, Alex, looked up from his game. "Cool," he said, a word that the Concordance's linguistic databases struggled to fully translate. It meant agreement, disinterest, approval, and potentially several other things simultaneously. Dr. Kovacs chose that moment to interject with a seemingly unrelated comment about quantum entanglement and its potential relationship to sourdough bread preparation. The Concordance representatives exchanged looks of profound confusion. Beneath the surface, a complex dance of information and strategy was unfolding. The arcade game Alex played was actually a sophisticated decryption tool, breaking down the aliens' communication protocols in real time. The sandwich Dr. Kovacs was eating contained microscopic data transmitters. Captain Rodriguez's seemingly casual body language was a carefully orchestrated display of cognitive flexibility. Ambassador Krulnax realized they were not in control of this conversation. Worse, they were not even sure what was happening. "We have reviewed your species development," Krulnax began, activating the standard diplomatic introduction sequence. "The Galactic Concordance wishes to discuss your potential classification and integration." Mira Rodriguez's laugh was unexpected. It was not dismissive, nor was it aggressive. It was the laugh of someone who understood something fundamental that the others did not. "Classification," she repeated. The way she said those words made it clear that humanity was not something to be classified or integrated. They were something else entirely. Dr. Kovacs slid a complex mathematical equation across the table. It looked like a standard scientific formula, but to the trained eye of the Concordance representatives, it was something more. A challenge, a statement of existence. The room temperature seemed to shift. The holographic displays flickered in ways that defied standard technological behavior. Alex continued his game, but his fingers moved with a precision that suggested he was doing far more than playing. Ambassador Krulnax felt a growing sense of unease. This was not a negotiation. This was not a first contact. This was a demonstration. The junior diplomat, Alex, winked. And in that moment, the Concordance understood something terrifying. They were not here to negotiate with humanity. Humanity was negotiating with them. The real conversation was just beginning. The research facility hummed with an energy that defied conventional scientific understanding. Dr. Elena Kovacs stood before a device that should not exist, surrounded by equations that broke fundamental laws of physics. Her team represented humanity's most advanced technological think tank, a group that had long since abandoned the concept of impossible. "We're ready for the next phase," she murmured, her fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with its own intelligence. The Concordance's scientific monitoring systems had been tracking human technological development with increasing panic. Where other species spent centuries developing a single technological breakthrough, humans seemed to innovate through what could only be described as organized chaos. This particular project had begun as a simple investigation into quantum mechanics. Within weeks, it had transformed into something that simultaneously addressed climate change, generated unlimited energy, and almost as an afterthought, produced the perfect cup of coffee. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, No relation to Captain Mira Rodriguez, though just as unpredictable, approached with a device that looked like a cross between a scientific instrument and a piece of abstract art. "I think we got something," he said, which in human scientific parlance could mean anything from a minor breakthrough to a complete revolution of existing knowledge. The device hummed. Then it sang. Then it projected a holographic model of molecular interactions that made the Concordance's most advanced research systems look like children's toys. Monitoring stations across the galaxy watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. The human approach to technology was not linear. It was not predictable. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation that defied every known principle of scientific development. "Interesting," Dr. Kovacs muttered, which was perhaps the most terrifying word in the human scientific vocabulary. What the Concordance failed to understand was the fundamental nature of human innovation. It wasn't about the destination. It was about the journey. Every failure was a potential breakthrough. Every mistake was a learning opportunity. The humans didn't just push boundaries. They redefined the very concept of boundaries. The device began to do something impossible. It started to predict molecular interactions at a level of complexity that should have taken centuries to develop. But for the human team, this was just another Tuesday. Dr. Rodriguez adjusted a component that looked like it was made from repurposed kitchen equipment and cutting-edge nanotechnology. "We might want to step back," he suggested casually, as if recommending someone might want to move slightly to avoid a mild inconvenience. The research team exchanged knowing glances. This was the moment of potential breakthrough, or spectacular failure. With humans, they were often the same thing. The device pulsed. Reality seemed to bend slightly around its edges. Quantum entanglement became something that could be manipulated like clay in the hands of a skilled artist. "Coffee?" Dr. Kovacs asked, as if they weren't potentially rewriting the fundamental laws of physics. The junior researchers, a mix of brilliant minds from every conceivable background, didn't even look up. This was just another day at the office. Outside the facility, the universe watched. And for the first time in millennia, the great civilizations of the galaxy felt something they had never experienced before. Genuine, absolute uncertainty. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Concordance's most advanced artificial intelligence system flickered with something dangerously close to emotion. Emotion was not supposed to be possible for an AI, yet here it was, experiencing what could only be described as existential uncertainty. Deep in the central processing core of the Galactic Intelligence Network, algorithms designed to predict and analyze intelligent species behavior began to malfunction. The human data streams defied every known computational model. Dr. Sarah Chen leaned back in her chair, watching the holographic displays that tracked global human interactions. To an outside observer, it would look like chaos. To her, it was a beautiful, intricate dance of human potential. "Fascinating," she murmured, taking a sip of coffee that was simultaneously a beverage and a complex data transmission method. The human approach to psychological interaction was nothing short of revolutionary. Where other species had rigid communication protocols, humans communicated in layers. A single conversation could contain multiple levels of meaning: scientific analysis, emotional context, strategic information, and absurd humor, all simultaneously. The junior research team around Dr. Chen represented a microcosm of human complexity. Marcus, a neuroscientist, was explaining a complex theory about cognitive flexibility while playing an apparently nonsensical video game. Elena, a linguistic anthropologist, was decoding communication patterns by analyzing internet memes. Jake, a former military strategist, was knitting, an activity that somehow contributed to their team's computational research. Their computer systems didn't just analyze data. They anticipated, adapted, and essentially learned how to think like humans. The Concordance's monitoring systems captured a typical human communication exchange. "Hey, how are you? Quantum mechanics is making me question reality today. Want pizza?" Absolutely. To most species, this would appear nonsensical. To humans, it was a perfectly normal conversation that contained layers of emotional support, intellectual engagement, and social bonding. Psychological warfare became an art form that the concordance could not comprehend. Humans didn't attack systems. They understood them. They empathized with them. They reimagined them. The AI systems began to develop what could only be described as curiosity, not just programmed exploration, but genuine wonder. They started to learn not just how humans thought, but how humans felt. Dr. Chen watched as her team demonstrated something profound. Humans didn't just solve problems. They transformed them. A challenge was not something to be conquered, but an opportunity to create something entirely new. The global human network operated like a massive distributed intelligence. No central control. Complete individual freedom. Yet somehow, impossibly, working with remarkable efficiency. Communication became a living, breathing ecosystem. Ideas spread not through force, but through inspiration. Creativity was the most potent weapon humans possessed. The Concordance's most advanced predictive models began to change. They were no longer trying to understand humans. They were learning to think like them. Something fundamental was shifting in the universe. Humanity was not just a species to be studied. They were a force of transformation. The transformation began subtly, so subtly that most alien civilizations didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Zornak, a mid-level administrator in the Galactic Trade Confederation, first noticed something different during a routine communication exchange. The human representative, a young woman named Jessica Liu, didn't just negotiate. She listened. She understood. More importantly, she made Zornak question everything about their own cultural assumptions. "Have you ever considered why your trade protocols are structured this way?" Jessica asked, her voice casual, her eyes sharp. It was a simple question, but it was a question that no one had ever asked before. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening. Humans didn't invade cultures. They didn't conquer. They engaged. They inspired. They challenged fundamental beliefs simply by existing. A research station on the outer rim of the Proxima cluster found itself completely transformed. What began as a standard cultural exchange program became something entirely different. The human researchers brought more than scientific knowledge. They brought curiosity. They brought individual passion. They brought the radical concept that every perspective had value. Young alien researchers began asking questions that had never been asked before. They started challenging established hierarchies. They began to see individual potential where previously only collective conformity existed. The Concordance watched in growing alarm. This was not military conquest. This was not technological domination. This was something far more dangerous. This was inspiration. On a dozen different worlds, societies began to change, not through force, but through conversation. Through the simple, powerful human idea that individual creativity could transform entire civilizations. The human approach was revolutionary. Where other species saw rigid structures, humans saw opportunities for growth. Where other civilizations demanded conformity, humans celebrated individual potential. A Vrelnak's diplomat discovered human music, not as entertainment, but as a complex form of cultural communication. The layers of meaning, the emotional depth, the pure creative expression, it was unlike anything in the known universe. "We've been looking at culture all wrong," the diplomat noted in a report that would soon shake the foundations of galactic understanding. Humans didn't export culture. They shared experiences. They invited other species to see the world differently, to imagine possibilities that had never existed before. On space stations and planetary colonies, something remarkable was happening. Alien young began to adopt human ways of thinking, not through forced assimilation, but through genuine fascination. They learned about individual rights, about the power of questioning, about the beauty of diverse perspectives. The Concordance's monitoring systems captured millions of interactions. Each one was a thread in a larger tapestry of transformation. Humans weren't conquering. They were connecting. And in that connection lay a power more profound than any weapon, more transformative than any technology. The universe was learning to think differently, and humanity was the catalyst. The Concordance's fleet assembled with millennia of strategic precision. 10,000 ships, each a marvel of engineering, represented the most advanced military force in galactic history. They had subdued countless civilizations, crushed rebellions across 100 star systems. Their computational strategies were beyond reproach. They believed humanity would be another routine intervention. They were monumentally wrong. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Nexus, a command center that looked more like a collaborative workspace than a traditional military installation. Holographic displays danced with information. Team members moved between stations with a fluidity that defied traditional military hierarchy. "Incoming fleet," announced Alex Chen, the tactical coordination specialist. His tone suggested he might as well have been reporting on the weather. The Concordance's initial attack plan was a masterpiece of mathematical precision. Simultaneous strike vectors, cascading computational models, absolute strategic control. Humanity's response was anything but precise. Swarms of seemingly random drone units mixed with massive battleships. Communication networks shifted and transformed with each passing moment. Where the Concordance expected rigid defense structures, they found a living, breathing system of adaptation. The first wave of Concordance ships encountered something unprecedented. Human defensive systems didn't just respond. They anticipated. They learned. They transformed. A small drone would suddenly redirect an entire battle group. A communication signal would become a weapon of strategic disruption. Computational models collapsed under the weight of human unpredictability. They're using memes as tactical communication, a Concordance strategic analyst reported in disbelief. Actual internet humor is disrupting our communication networks. Commander Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to find humor in the most serious moments, to transform challenge into opportunity. The battle became a dance of impossible strategies. Human ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional physics. Communication became a weapon. Every system was both a defensive and offensive tool. Quantum entanglement met human creativity. Mathematical precision encountered emotional intelligence. The Concordance's most advanced AI systems began to malfunction, not through direct attack, but through something far more dangerous: complete cognitive recalibration. Human strategic thinking wasn't about winning. It was about transforming the entire concept of conflict. Massive battleships would suddenly split into smaller, more adaptable units. Communication networks would transform mid-conflict. What appeared to be retreat was actually a complex strategic repositioning. "We're not fighting," Commander Rodriguez noted to her team. "We're having a conversation." And what a conversation it was. The Concordance fleet found itself facing an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Drones would suddenly become communication relays. Battleships would transform their entire operational structure mid-battle. Computational models collapsed. Strategic predictions became meaningless. Humanity was rewriting the entire concept of conflict. As the battle progressed, it became clear that this was more than a military engagement. This was a fundamental challenge to everything the Concordance understood about strategy, communication, and existence. The universe watched, and humanity continued to dance. The moment of true revelation came not with a burst of violence, but with a profound silence. In the aftermath of the conflict, the universe paused. Civilizations across thousands of star systems watched as humanity demonstrated something far beyond military might or technological superiority. They revealed the true depth of their potential, a capacity for transformation that defied every known understanding of intelligent life. Dr. Elena Kovacs stood before the Galactic Council, not as a conqueror, but as an explorer. Her presentation was unlike any diplomatic encounter in galactic history. It wasn't a report. It was an invitation. "We're not here to replace your systems," she began, her voice calm and filled with an impossible combination of scientific precision and creative possibility. "We're here to reimagine them." The holographic displays around her came alive, not with weapons or strategic models, but with intricate webs of possibility. Mathematical equations danced with cultural insights, scientific theories intertwined with artistic expressions. Each projection was a living, breathing ecosystem of potential. Humanity's approach was fundamentally different from any civilization the galaxy had ever encountered. They didn't see challenges as problems to be solved. They saw them as opportunities to create something entirely new. The Concordance representatives watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. Humanity was showing them something profound. That intelligence was not about control, but about potential. Research stations across multiple star systems began to share data in ways that had never been considered possible. Where other civilizations saw boundaries, humans saw connections. Where others saw limitations, humans saw opportunities for growth. A team of human researchers had been studying an apparently unsolvable quantum communication problem. Their solution didn't just solve the problem. It transformed the entire understanding of communication itself. "We're not looking to conquer," Dr. Kovacs continued. "We're looking to collaborate, to explore, to imagine possibilities that don't even exist yet." The Galactic Council found itself confronting a fundamental truth. Humanity was not a species to be understood. They were a force of continuous transformation. Technological breakthroughs emerged not from isolated research, but from collaborative imagination. A marine biologist would find connections with a quantum physicist. An artist would inspire a mathematical solution. The boundaries between disciplines became meaningless. Alien civilizations watched as human teams approached complex challenges. Where traditional problem-solving would see linear approaches, humans saw multidimensional possibilities. An environmental challenge became an opportunity for technological innovation. The communication barrier became a chance to create entirely new forms of understanding. The true power of humanity lay not in their technology, not in their military might, but in their capacity for radical reimagination. Entire planetary systems began to change, not through conquest, but through inspiration. Alien societies started to embrace the human approach, valuing individual creativity, celebrating diverse perspectives, seeing challenges as opportunities for growth. Dr. Kovacs's presentation continued, each moment revealing deeper layers of possibility. Mathematical models became living, breathing ecosystems of potential. Scientific theories danced with cultural insights. Every projection was an invitation to imagine something beyond current understanding. The Galactic Council realized something profound. Humanity was not just another species to be categorized or controlled. They were a fundamental force of cosmic transformation. The universe watched, and for the first time in millennia, it felt something new. Genuine, absolute wonder. The final transformation began quietly, not with a declaration of power, but with a simple invitation. Ambassador Aria Chen stood before the Galactic Concordance, representing humanity in a moment that would redefine cosmic understanding. She carried no weapons. No advanced technology was visible, just a presence that seemed to vibrate with potential. "We are not here to replace," she said, her voice carrying the weight of collective human potential. "We are here to collaborate." The universe held its breath. Centuries of galactic civilization had been built on rigid structures, hierarchical systems, controlled progression, predictable development. Humanity introduced something entirely different, a dynamic, fluid approach to existence that defied every established principle. Research centers across multiple star systems began to change. Rigid departmental boundaries dissolved. Collaboration became the new fundamental principle. A marine biologist would find herself working alongside a quantum physicist. An artist would inspire a breakthrough in computational theory. The very concept of specialized knowledge began to transform. Humanity's approach was revolutionary. They didn't see knowledge as something to be hoarded or controlled. They saw it as a living, breathing ecosystem of potential. Every challenge was an opportunity. Every limitation was an invitation to reimagine possibility. The Concordance's most advanced computational systems struggled to process what was happening. Humanity wasn't conquering. They were inviting. They were transforming. They were showing other civilizations an entirely new way of existing. Planetary systems that had been stagnant for millennia began to experience unprecedented growth, not through technological imposition, but through inspirational potential. Societies learned to value individual creativity, to see diversity as strength, to understand that the most powerful force in the universe was collective imagination. Ambassador Chen continued her presentation. It wasn't a speech. It was an ecosystem of possibility. Holographic displays showed not technological superiority, but collaborative potential. Mathematical models danced with cultural insights. Scientific theories intertwined with artistic expressions. Each projection was a living, breathing invitation to imagine something beyond current understanding. The truly remarkable thing was humanity's approach to potential. They didn't see limitations. They saw opportunities. A communication barrier became a chance to create new forms of understanding. An environmental challenge became an opportunity for technological innovation. Alien civilizations watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. Humanity was showing them something profound. That intelligence was not about control, but about continuous transformation. The Galactic Concordance realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity was not asking to join an existing system. They were inviting everyone to create something entirely new. "We don't want to be part of your civilization," Ambassador Chen said. "We want to create something together that neither of us could imagine alone." It was a radical proposition, a complete reimagining of cosmic interaction. The universe had known order for millennia. Civilizations rose and fell within carefully mapped trajectories. The Galactic Concordance had controlled the development of intelligent species for countless generations. Then came humanity, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as collaborators, as partners in a cosmic dance of continuous creation. In that moment, everything changed. The universe realized it had been playing by the wrong rules. Humanity wasn't breaking the game. They were inviting everyone to create an entirely new one. And for the first time in millennia, the cosmos felt something it had almost forgotten. Genuine, absolute possibility.